Admiral Horst von Schröder has traveled from Hamburg to visit his wartime commander and close friend, Captain Reinhard Hardegen. More than 50 years ago, they served many patrols together on U-123.
Oh, da bin ich. Hier, komm rein. Danke. Wunderbar. Danke. When I was commander of Submarine 123, Admiral von Schröder, he was my watch officer, and he made all the patrols I made with 123, and he was a marvelous watch officer for me.
Hardegen and the U-boat arm were commanded by a veteran submariner of World War I. Admiral Karl Dönitz had developed a submarine strategy for which the Allies and even the Germans were not prepared. He also earned the admiration and respect of his men.
Admiral Dönitz, he had a very high personality, and he was like a father to all submariners. And he was one of the best troop leaders we had in the whole war.
Dönitz believed that with 300 submarines, Germany could throttle Great Britain. Events nearly proved him right. But at the outset, he had a mere 22 ocean-going U-boats. Try as he might, he could not make Hitler share his vision.
And that was a big failure Hitler made. I always said Hitler looked to the east, to the land. Hitler was no Navy officer. And I told him that when I was in the headquarters that it was a big failure because this war was a naval war. And the war only could be won or lost on the Atlantic and nothing else. And he laughed, he didn't believe it, but it was true.
Anxious not to antagonize America, Hitler insisted on observing the prize regulations, preventing his U-boat commanders from sinking merchant ships without warning.
We didn't expect any prize regulations, really, because in World War I, the convoy system had been introduced, and that prize regulations with the convoy system wouldn't work.
Ships in convoy with armed escorts were far less vulnerable to submarine attack. Sinkings dropped dramatically when the convoy system was revived by the British. But Dönitz had devised a method for dealing with them.
And then was the aim to have a concentration of subs against a concentration of cargo ships, of ships in the convoy. So that was the thinking behind the wolf pack tactics.
Lick the U-boat and you beat the Hun. That 1917
On sighting a convoy, a U-boat commander would signal its position to headquarters. Other U-boats would be ordered to gather in the area before attacking together as a wolf pack, causing fearful destruction.
Is as dangerous to your home as a 1,000-pound bomb from the air.
Using his submarine's greater speed on the surface, Kretschmer preferred to attack at night, inventing new tactics.
The safest place for an attack was inside the convoy. And so I developed the tactics to penetrate the destroyer screen, to go inside the convoy, and there I was able to pick out the biggest ships, to be close to the target, so that I need not use more than one torpedo to sink them. And so at every patrol, I was more successful than other captains.
When Kretschmer and the other U-boat aces came home, they were welcomed as public heroes. They called it the Golden Time.
You see, or they want to know our feelings. And it's very difficult to know 50 years afterwards our feelings. It was what we had to do and what we learned when we saw an enemy, a freighter, a destroyer, or an auxiliary cruiser. We had to attack the ship, because our order was to sink ships, not to kill men, but to sink ships.
I think that is a very important point, that in the Navy we were fighting against material and not against man.
For the Wolfpack strategy to work, Dönitz depended upon having full details of each submarine's location.
Every submarine at sea is a unit of itself, and its captain must decide what to do. He cannot receive tactical orders to attack now or not now by a shore headquarters from a green-based table.
But each time the U-boats communicated with Dönitz at headquarters, they were unknowingly betraying their own positions.
And the reason was that the British cracked our German naval cipher in Bletchley Park.
The High Command of the Armed Forces of the Navy would not acknowledge the fact that the enemy had broken the code. The result was that every signal for Operation Atlantic could be read at the same time by the enemy.
By cracking the Enigma code, the British could now pinpoint the U-boats. Convoys could avoid them, and the submarines became vulnerable to attack.
The real role of cipher breaking was really to localize the submarine contact. It meant that you could get your anti-submarine ships and your aircraft into the right area. Instead of hunting for needles in haystacks, you could really target your anti-submarine assets accurately. That's why the Enigma code-breaking exercise was so crucial.